as you all might be familiar with at this point, I have many videos at this point on essentially like resolutions for the new year. I did one that I will certainly link in the description box. And then I also did another one specific for Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. And guess what? I have one for our white counterparts as well. Yes, these are some of the top resolutions that our white brothers and sisters can adhere to for the new year in order to promote anti-racism, racial equity, and racial justice. Let's go. The first thing is to write down all the ways that you have learned that racial trauma exists. So I think that starting off with this is so critically important because everyone's starting off at different stages. For some folks, 2020 or 2021 was some of the first years that they've even been thinking about racism. For some folks, it's not, right? And some folks, you know, it's just so critically important for you to kind of start with that baseline of figuring out, okay, these are all the things that I learned and that I learned essentially reproduced racism, right? That is critically important. So I would definitely start there. And then that brings me to the second point, which is to make a resolution to then write down all the ways that you yourself have witnessed racial trauma taking place in 2021. So this is also important, right? Like writing down all the ways that you have realized that racial trauma exists, and then kind of couple that with the ways that you've like personally seen it either in like person, right? Or maybe it's on the news, or maybe it's a combination of both, or maybe it's even by like having a conversation with like a loved one, and then you're kind of picking up that racial trauma probably took place, and by racial trauma, i.e. racism, right, it probably took place. I think that that's so critically important. That allows you to then, what I would recommend is kind of reconcile those lists, right? Let's say right here, you're realizing, oh, racial trauma takes place with interpersonal communications, and it also takes place within how policies are set within an organization or whatever, right? Like these are kind of like two kind of basic things, right? Maybe you're noticing that maybe all of what you said that you noticed are mostly interpersonal between people, right? So you're noticing, oh, like actually when Jackie spoke to Tasha, this is how racism took place on the interpersonal level. Okay, great. If you're noticing that you're mainly kind of focusing on one of the things that you learned, but you haven't actually seen firsthand how it's also taking place on another thing that you learned, in this case, let's say the institutional level, then it's likely that it's happening on the institutional level, but for whatever reason, you're not actually seeing that, right? So that brings me to my third resolution that you really should be holding yourself accountable to, which is essentially looking and trying to find some of your blind spots, okay? So that is certainly a really solid way to find your blind spot, is to essentially compare the lists and see, okay, what am I not capturing, right? That is probably a blind spot. Another way that I want to encourage you to know what your blind spots are is to just simply ask God. God is the God of all things, and fortunately, He can tell us things that we might not know ourselves, amen? So just make sure that that is a constant prayer, and have your heart be open, because so many times as Christians, we might go ahead and pray, but how many of us know that sometimes our hearts aren't open? So I would just encourage you, have your heart open, okay? When you pray to the Father, just be like, Lord, I'm broken. I'm realizing that. I know that there's some mess in here that I need to address because you don't like it, and it's not image bearing. So work with me. I need help, and I need you to reveal it. And I promise to you that I'm going to be open to hearing, towards being obedient, towards changing, towards bending in the ways that you need me to bend, Lord. Just reveal it to me. Reveal things that are not seen to me. Reveal the unseen to me, God. I'm hungry. I need it. I crave it, God. I want to be more like you. And that requires me seeing things of me that might feel uncomfortable. But I pray, Lord, that you give me the strength to address it, and the boldness and courage to as well, right? So I would say definitely do that so that you can get to the third resolution, which is to commit to identifying all the blind spots that you have, okay? Guess what? Personal reflection. What are all the ways that you yourself have perpetuated racism? Now, this is a hard one, y'all, okay? But guess what? We know that everyone breathes in that air, right? So that means that everyone contributes to it. So, and especially being a white person, we know that you're definitely contributing to it. Okay, so being really intentional, okay? This, I would actually refer back to the first list and be like, okay, if these are all the ways that racism can show up, what are all the ways that I've been complicit to it? What are all the ways I've been silent to it? What are all the ways that I benefit from it? What are all the ways that I have not tried to disturb it? Right? All of that. And then again, just ask God and be like, Lord, what are all the ways that I've perpetuated racism? What are all the ways that I've harmed my Black, Indigenous, and other sisters and brothers of color, right? And then I would say another thing is just to ask maybe other white colleagues who are conscious about these things, who know you well, to say it. But the thing is, don't be defensive, y'all, because that's the only way that we grow. God calls us to humility. And then another thing, if you are in a relationship with like a friendship, family relationship, whatever the case is, with other BIPOC who consent, right? Who consent and don't feel pressure to actually sharing that with you, then maybe engage in conversation of like different ways that that they've been harmed by you, right? And again, committing to not playing the, oh, whoa, it's me, oh, I feel so bad, and the white tears thing. No, you can't do that. But commit to growing and just listening and being like, okay, I'm just gonna be like a sponge. Thank you for letting me know. I apologize for that. And I need to work on myself and grow so I don't have you experience that anymore or anyone else experience that. So I need to grow, right? So take ownership of that. But I think all of those things is hard, right? But it is necessary for self-growth, okay? So those are the top resolutions that I want to encourage our white brothers and sisters to just really commit to for 2022 if you are serious about pursuing a life of anti-racism, okay? I hope that you like this video, that you comment below, that you share it with a friend, that you even share it with family, y'all, and that you subscribe to this channel, okay? Until next time.